So, good morning and thank you for having me. I'm very excited. My name is Nadine and I am connecting in from St. Lucia, hence why it looks a bit dark in my background. It will start to lighten up. It's coming up to sunrise, so it should lighten up just shortly.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode. And you wake up quite early too because it's very early there. Anyway, I don't know when the day is getting bright, if it is still dark a little bit or so, because it's 6 a.m. there right now, right?
It is. It's just it's starting to the sun is just rising now, so it should start to lighten up shortly. So yeah, it's 6 a.m. here, but I still work remotely to the UK, so being up at this time is fine. And generally in the Caribbean, people are up early anyway, so it's normal.
That's interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to be feeling bad now that I wake you up early.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, Nadine, give us a little presentation of yourself. Where did you grow up? Now, you will see somewhere written here that everyone has a story to share. So when we bring people to the podcast here, we try to concentrate on their story. So we're going to concentrate on you and what you do. So start with where you were born and growing up, about those early days of your life. Please go.
Sure. So, as I said, my name is Nadine. I am born and raised in the UK. So, I was born in London to my parents, obviously, and I have two siblings. I'm the middle child. Sometimes I call myself the neglected child when I'm looking for some sympathy, but not really. So yes, as I said, I was born and raised in the UK. My kind of early childhood, my parents were married, they separated and divorced. I lived with my mum initially for a few years, and then myself and my brother transitioned to my dad because we share the same father, and my sister went to stay with another person. So our family was broken up when I was quite small. And I was raised by my father from the age of about 7 until my adulthood, essentially. So that was a big part of my identity, being raised by my dad. Like when I went into college and schools, people would say, "Oh, who do you live with?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I live with my dad." And people were like, "You live with your dad?" Like, really? So I'd be like, "Yeah." But to me, it was normal, right? But to other people, it was just like, "Oh my gosh, there's a single dad out there and he's Caribbean. Wow." That's amazing. So it did become a massive part of my identity, and I always my dad's my hero, and he's a massive part of my life. Not to say that my mum isn't. I still have an amazing relationship with her, but he was very much he molded me during my formative years, let's just say that much. So I was really academic, a high achiever, did well in school, went to uni, college, then went to university. I was about to say I went twice, but I think I probably went about 4 times, got my master's, and did some other courses. I am looking at doing a doctorate. It's in my back of my brain saying, Nadine, do this doctorate. So I'm quite academic. I'm a social worker by profession. I have an absolute love of helping people. That's certainly my passion. And I in the early parts of my career, I felt a bit anxious. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that can happen. I felt like, this little black girl is helping these people. Like, who am I? Who am I to be able to help? So there's a lot of imposter syndrome and just kind of not really understanding myself and my worth and my power, essentially. So as I kind of went up in the ranks in social work, I got into my stride, really, really enjoyed serving the children and families that I worked with. But I did get to a point where I was like, I don't know where I fit anymore. So the pandemic was crazy. the pandemic caused was absolutely horrific for so many people, sadly. For me, I am amazingly blessed because it was an opportunity that I grabbed with both hands and made some amazing decisions as a result. So I was working as a senior leader in a local authority in London at the time when the pandemic hit. And I'd just gone through some personal challenges. So I was off work for a little while and then just started really intentionally thinking about my career, what I wanted to do, what my life was going to look like. I had some personal challenges as well. So I'd recently gone through a separation and just kind of felt like I kind of lost myself. Like I was like, who am I? I feel like I've failed. I think that's a big thing for me. I'm a person who doesn't like to fail at anything. As I said, I was very academic. I was kind of went up that traditional route of education. Everyone was proud. Oh my gosh, Nadine's so great. She's now a manager. She's got her degree. She's done her first degree. She's done her second degree. So I was very much a person that has done things, I want to say the right way, but kind of the trajectory was great. I got married. I was then hoping to have children. And that wasn't happening. So at the point of 2020, I was just, well, in 2018, to be fair, actually, I was just feeling a bit stuck. Like I was falling out of love with social work. I was separating from my then husband. And it was just, I just felt like, is this life? Like life feels, yeah, I don't like it. Is this what it is? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's basically what was happening for me. So once the pandemic hit, I had the space to be at home. I was working pretty much from home at the time, and I just went on a journey of self-discovery. I put on my later in the year, I put on my social media that I was going to cocoon myself, and I was just going to do some real intense work to understand who I was an individual, who I was as a human, and just really think about and design my life. So I got focused on my health. I got focused on my plans for the future, what that looks like, and I very much identify with my Caribbean heritage. So my mum is Jamaican, my dad is from St. Lucia, and I always knew at some point I wanted to come to the Caribbean to live, probably in my retirement. You know, once you've kind of done all of the stuff in the UK, just come and then just settle and live and, you know, watch sunsets and all of that, sit on the veranda in your older years and just kind of enjoy the latter part of your life. I obtained citizenship here. It was a while ago, like back in, I want to say 2011, 2012. And so, because I always knew at some point I wanted to be here. But I did a process of designing my life, all 12 different areas of my life. And then I just decided, actually, my ideal life doesn't look like London. It looks like palm trees and where there's people that look like me. So
That's
that was pretty
interesting.
much it. It didn't look like London. And it's crazy because my late granddad, who passed away earlier this year, but he found it absolutely
Sorry
a
about that.
nonsense, yeah. He had a really great life. He was 92. But he found it, he was baffled that I was thinking of moving back home, right? He was like, here's not your home. Your home is London. You was born there. We came over in the 50s and 40s and when all of that was happening. But London is your home. And I'm just like, no, the systemic racism, they don't like us too much. That's what it feels like anyway. And there's lots of things that are happening over in the UK at the moment. In a local authority that I worked in previously also, where there's a new review that's come up about a child that's been reviewed because of some of the treatment that she's received. And it just feels like actually I just needed to be around people that look like me. So I made a decision on the 6th of December 2020 to move. And On the 17th of April 2021, I moved to St. Lucia. So here I am, almost in my year anniversary. I'm very excited. I haven't looked back. I've been back to the UK twice already. But yeah, so that's just a bit of my story. It kind of just waves a bit. Interesting
That's
childhood with my
interesting.
dad. And then here I am. I feel like I'm retired already. I'm 43 and I feel like I'm retired in the Caribbean. But it's awesome that I still get to share my experience with social workers back in the UK, and give them some inspiration, because it's a hard job, and it's important to have a vision and knowing where you want to get to and what it looks like for you. What does your extraordinary look like, and working towards it. So that's what I do now. I help people on their journey to extraordinary and their excellence.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You see, you are not the first person to say that that said to me that during this period of lockdown, they managed to find something good about themselves. No, because
Mm,
sometimes we complain we don't have time. We're always running, running, running. But sometimes we need to really stop and reflect and look at our life and look at our trajectory, look at where we are going, and really see the reason behind what we are doing. So
mm,
I think this lockdown actually did a lot of things to people. Of course, a lot of people complained they were tired of staying at home. They couldn't do anything anymore. But for
mm,
some other persons, it was a moment of rebirth for them. Because
mm,
I did a lot of interview covering this story, interview different people to understand how are you feeling in this period. Because it had never really happened to us for since all my life, of course, it had never happened that the entire global economy was locked down. We have to be inside
mm.
the house. So tell me, how did you encounter yourself again in this period? Share a little more light on that.
Sure. So I think it was all timely. I'm a firm believer in him upstairs, the universe, whoever it is that your higher being is. I no, they conspire, and it's amazing. It's always for our good, even if we don't like it, even if it's like really tough to get through. But I do believe that there is the greater good is on its way. So literally a couple of weeks before we were fully shut down, I attended a conference in London. It was a famous American motivational speaker. He was over in the UK. And I was listening to the radio, and one of my friends who I've known since I was a teenager, he was the DJ. He was talking. And he was talking about a gig that he got for being the DJ for Eric Thomas. So Eric Thomas was coming over for a 1% conference, and he was talking about being the DJ. So he was like lit. He was so excited about getting this role, because he was very inspired by Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas's voice is everywhere in terms of the motivational speaking world. He gives stats actually that he's the number one. I don't know if it is challenged by anyone, but he certainly has content for years out there. So he's a very, very inspirational man. And so my friend was talking about this on the radio, and I was like, maybe I should go to this thing. So I asked a few of my friends, and I was like, okay, do you fancy coming? Everybody was a bit like, no, no, no. And I felt really disheartened about it. I'm a complete introvert by nature, so I kind of wanted somebody to go with. But the universe said to me, you know what, Nadine, go anyway. Just go. So I picked up myself, bought my ticket, I went, didn't talk to anyone. I pretty much went, sat down, absorbed all of this powerful information from Eric Thomas and all of the other speakers that were there at the time. Pretty much only said hi to the person that was sitting next to me, and I went to go and see my friend who was doing the DJing. But apart from that, I didn't really talk to anyone, because I'm not really like that. I'm not really social like that. I can't walk up to people and just say, hi, how are you? Like, it's just not in my nature. But it was powerful to me, like this, all of this just flow of positivity and encouragement and motivation was phenomenal. So what it prompted me to do is get some coaching. I was introduced to a DISC assessment, which is a self-assessment tool. And I got some coaching, thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Felt like actually this guy was being psychic towards me. So I was looking at him a bit side-eye, like, how do you know this? And basically the self-assessment was a bit like, it's basically the research says that we are all different, right? But we're predictably different. So when he was saying to me things like, oh, you can hold a grudge, huh, Nadine? And I was looking at him like, how the hell do you know he was like, yeah, you can be quite sarcastic. And I'm like, well, you don't feel like you have to defend yourself. Like, but what happened was, no, joking. But so it was really powerful to me. And actually, even just going through that process, I was like, oh, I want to do what you're doing with me right now. I want to help people understand themselves. And it wasn't that he was telling me anything I didn't know. It was more that it was putting words to it, articulating it, and making it be okay. So in certain situations, I'm very much focused. Like even this morning, when I was preparing for coming on with to come in to talk to you, I was kind of thinking, all right, so what do I want to make sure that I say? Kind of just giving myself some bullet points in terms of a bit of my story and things like that. And my partner was trying to talk to me, and I ignored him.
Why?
I ignored him because he was trying to make jokes, and I was like, no, I'm focused right now. Don't talk to me. And it's not that I'm trying to be rude. It's just because when I'm in that mode, I need to concentrate on a mode. It's not about relationships. It's not about jokes. It's not about, trying to be social. At that point, I'm focused. I'm zoned in. So that's when my sarcasm may come out, or I might just ignore you. I'm just like, or I might just be quite dismissive. And I think he struggles with that because he's completely the opposite of me in terms of being quite social. But he knows me now. So I'm just a bit like, babe, I'm focused. And he'd be like, all right, cool. Sorry. But even just that now, I just know that that's just who I am as an individual. And I can say, if I'm zoned in on something, I'm not likely to, that's just my focus. And I'm not likely to, that I can't then be something else. If I'm zoned in, I'm zoned in. And being okay with that. So he may have gotten his feelings a little bit, but he knows that that's just me. So it probably was just a flittering feeling for him. So that's what this tool did for me. Like certain things that I do, what I don't do, how I find it quite difficult to just go up to a stranger and say, hi, how are you? How's life? I would just never do that. And that's okay because I'm an introvert and I own it and I'm proud and I'm authentic in myself. My partner, on the other hand, he's completely the opposite. He will go up and talk to anybody, but they say opposites attract, right? So certainly during the pandemic, let me come back because I'm slightly digressing. So once we was then locked down, I had this amazing information about myself. I trained to become a coach. So I trained in the DISC assessment. So I'm now a practitioner of behavior and communication styles. I was coaching people internationally, so a lot of people in the States, some people in Canada, and a few people in the UK. So I was just kind of honing my craft. I then did a process called Life Book, which I was designing my life. I was doing that alongside it. And then I just then was like, okay, well, this is what my life now looks like. I just need to now implement. So I got really focused on my health, as I said earlier, and then was just every day doing something intentional. I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was working out. I was working on some sort of personal development or business related stuff. Then I was doing my day job. Then I was kind of chilling out because I'm very much a morning person. So after 5 o'clock, you probably wouldn't get me doing very much because I'm a bit like I'm there. But first thing in the morning, I'm fire. Like I go out, I go and be at one with nature, meditate, come back, and my brain, all the downloads from him upstairs is just coming to me. And I'm like, yeah, fire, I can do all of this now. So it's a good thing I'm working in the UK now because they're probably getting so much more out of me that I am actually up at the times when I'm absolutely alive. If I was a night owl, I'd probably be struggling, but it's worked so phenomenally to me. So yeah, the opportunity to be at home, to be able to focus, to concentrate on honing my craft in terms of the coaching, during the lockdowns was amazing to me. I went out, got fresh air, did all of that. But naturally, as a person who is an introvert, that was going to be comfortable to me anyway. I can imagine those that are more extroverted were probably pulling their hair out because they wanted to be out and around other people. But as somebody who is quite homely, is within herself a lot of the time anyway, it was perfect. So I just used the opportunity to really develop myself and practice and master my skills so I can help other people to know themselves better also.
That's interesting. That's powerful. I
Mm.
believe that is a lot of things that we can actually gain by trying to know ourselves more, because I think the power really is within, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only without, but it's also within. We need to
Mm-hmm.
go inside. I think a couple of years back, not really long time ago, in the development of this podcast, it was initially called Business and Self Improvement Podcast. We did a lot on self improvement. There, I was really talking a lot about that. Of course, then I was doing only solo podcasts. I wasn't inviting people to come in. I learned a lot talking about
Mm.
these things. It's actually one of the things that also make me to do that podcast, that do that interview, a series of interview from Canada, UK, US, Nigeria, in different part of the world, of course, concentrating on the African diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
You try to understand how is it for you this moment, no? So I
Mm.
think it's really important that we don't always complain that we are alone, because
Mm.
that lone moment is for you to find, to rediscover yourself, who you
Mm.
really are, your power. Because
Mm.
you can't find your power in the crowd. You can't
Mm.
discover yourself just drinking around or jumping around. I think there
Mm.
is a reason why certain people in our history, whether you are looking at Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, they needed some moment for themselves to
Mm.
pray, to commune, to whoever you believe in. But that moment is for you alone and your creator to
Mm.
rediscover yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of find it very interesting when you were explaining also all this moment that you shared alone, no? Because it helped me to understand also what you are doing. Because before you
Mm.
can do for others, you first need to do for yourself.
100%.
And you call yourself personal development strategist. Tell me more
Yes.
about that. I think it's interesting.
Sure. So I'm actually writing a book for new social workers. So for aspiring, so student social workers and new social workers. So I am um, I have a consultancy business, a coaching and consultancy business, which I am setting up, and it's kind of piecing all together at the moment. And I'm writing a book so that I can help new and aspiring social workers so that they can be very self-aware and use that information in their role. So certainly as a new social worker myself, as I mentioned earlier, there were times when I felt like I was, feeling like, I don't know if I can do this job. I feel quite anxious. Um, and I felt that because I'm quite quiet naturally, and I don't really like conflict. So I could go into somebody's house and say, for example, this isn't anybody real, but say I went into somebody's house and it was not great. So there was rubbish all over the floor. It was disgusting or whatever. So I create this imaginary house. And it was absolutely not okay for a baby to be crawling around in this house. I would really struggle when I first started to know how to say to this parent, your house isn't good enough. You need to sort it out. I would really struggle to say that. I'm a social worker. I'm supposed to be able to tell somebody, let me, your house is not okay. So what I found I would do is I would say, hi, can we have a conversation about what the reason is for this, for your property looking like this? What is stopping you from making it look better? What are the challenges? So I would have that conversation. But the messages that I was getting from my managers, for example, would say to me that I need to go in there and say, nope, your house is disgusting. You need to fix it. I'm coming back tomorrow. If it's not done, then there's going to be a problem. Not that I'm coming to take away your children, because that's not what we do, people. We do not take away children.
Please
It is
say that clearly.
we do not take, a social worker does not have the power to remove anybody's child. Like, please. We don't. There's only two people that can do that, the police and the courts. Social workers have no power in that sense.
But you do
Anyways, rant over.
influence it, right? You do influence
Oh,
that.
absolutely. We can certainly contribute to the decision, but we cannot physically go into someone. That's kidnap. If I went to somebody's house and took their child, it's completely kidnap. But anyway, I digress. um, so so I would find it really hard. Like I would find it really hard to be very direct in that sense. And so, but I felt like I had managers that were saying, well, did you tell them that it wasn't good enough? And what was their response? And how were they going to fix it? And I felt like I was fluffy. So when I'm talking to people, I felt like I was just kind of maybe dancing around the issue. I was telling them, but it was kind of felt like I wasn't like direct because I wasn't bang, it was a problem. And then as I continued with my career, I just kind of found my way in terms of how I interact with people. And I'm very much a person of being respectful. So I will always talk to somebody with respect. I will listen to what their views are. Try not to be as judgmental, although it's, with the social work hat, you kind of have to be. But I try not to be judgmental of their circumstances of where they're coming. I'm quite curious about how and why they've got there, be that because of their own childhood experiences or the circumstances or whatever. I've got quite a curious mind like that. So that's something that I definitely would always do. And I tell when I was within the space in statutory social work with my students, I would say to them, in the whole of my career, I've never been I've never been attacked. I've never been threatened. And it's not because I don't know how to deliver a difficult message. I think it's just because I know how to talk to people in a way that they can receive my message to them. I've said to somebody that their child may have to go up for adoption because they're not in a space right now where they can give the child what they need. I've been able to say things like that and have it heard. They may not have liked it. They probably were really angry and went off and just was obviously devastated by that information. But to me, directly as a human, I've never felt threatened by anybody. And I genuinely believe it's because of the way that I have respect for other people. So certainly me writing this book is helping those new social workers to understand themselves, know that it's okay if you don't if you feel a bit nervous about conflict. It's okay if you or if even in the opposite, you are a person that does like to go indirect, but then you have a feedback that's then worrying to you, or you think, oh, I maybe need to adjust the way that I'm speaking or how I'm interacting. It's about helping people to really understand what their default is, and then move forward in their power with regards to that. So if you're a person that really likes to motivate other people, move forward with that, use that. If you're a person who likes the details, that's me. If you like the details of things, you want to analyze information, you're curious, you want to know why, you want to know why, then understand why. Your analysis is going to be amazing when you go into working with these families and thinking about why certain things are happening. If you're a person that just likes results, you're going to go in, you're going to see the problem, you're going to be quick thinking, you're going to be like, right, this is what needs to happen and this is how we can manage it. I don't really know the details, but this is what needs to happen going forward. Move with that power. If you're a person that knows that this person, just the family needs to be listened to, if they've just had all of so much stress over them and they just need to be listened to, if your superpower is about listening and patience and providing that nurturing to them, lean into that. And it's just knowing where you fit, but also knowing when the time is right for you to use other parts of you so that you can get the job done. So that's essentially what I do for the new social workers that that I was supporting previously up until late last year, and now that's what I'm going to be doing through the book and the coaching that I'm developing at the moment. So yeah, so that's me.
Beautiful, Nadine. That is really beautiful. All right, now that move on to another part of the conversation that we are having today, which is about excellence. Um, because it's part of your coaching program, no? How do
Yes.
people develop excellence? What does it even mean, excellence? Can you help us with your own description of excellence?
Sure. So I think there's 4 parts to excellence for me personally. So the first part, which I've kind of alluded to a few times, is knowing yourself, knowing who you are as a human, knowing who you are as an individual. So not only your communication styles and your behavior, but also something called intersectionality, which is devised by a lady called Miss Climby. Oh no, gosh, Crenshaw. Sorry, brain went for a second. Kimberly Crenshaw, and she devised this term that thinks about all of the different aspects of ourselves. So there's quite a few. So I'm going to try and remember some of them. So that's our age, our race, ethnicity, culture, religion, spoke spirituality, geography, language, gender, sexuality, sexual identity. I think there's a few more, but I can't remember them all. But just kind of grounding yourself and knowing who you are as a human. So, and what is important to you, what shows up for you. So for me, what shows up for me is that I'm a Black female. 100%. I don't have any disabilities, so to speak. I do have some chronic conditions, but I don't have any disabilities. I'm 43 years old. So that's what's relevant for me. For somebody else, it may be that they have a disability. It may be that their sexuality is something that comes to the forefront of them. That's their kind of biggest context. So understanding yourself as a human is incredibly important because it impacts how you show up in different circumstances. And then linked to that is around authenticity. Are you able to be you, whoever you are? One, do you know who you are? And are you able to be you? So certainly a big reason why I moved over here, and I didn't even realize how much I needed to be in the Caribbean with people that looked like me until I got here. I did some courses back in the UK around being Black in the UK and leadership styles and connecting with your ancestry and who you are as a Black person, or who I am as a Black person, I should say. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's now just.
No. It's
okay,
noise.
perfect.
It's raining. There is God in the rain.
It's just started to come down like a shower outside, so it's pretty loud. So I'm glad you can't hear it. So your authenticity, that's it. Thank you. So it's important to know who you are as a human. So as I was saying, coming over here, I didn't realize how much I needed to be around people that looked like me, because I definitely felt, so I mentioned earlier about the imposter syndrome. Well, once I started to go up the ladder and I was in these meetings with senior managers, I was a senior manager. I was in these meetings with senior managers and I literally felt the little Black girl in the room, because I looked around. There were people that looked like me, so that wasn't the issue, but it was just more about, oh, they're going to realize that I'm not as good as I made out in that interview. And that maybe I don't know how to do this job. So I was just quiet in a lot of meetings, and it was noticeable because, one, I didn't feel very confident. Not that I didn't have the information, because I did, but I just didn't have the confidence to come forward and be like, ugh. So certainly being authentic in terms of who I am as a female, who I am as a Black woman, who I am as a Caribbean person. So understanding and being okay in your skin. So often living in the Western world, when you're going into workplaces, you have to put on this professional pro form. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what it can do is it can strip us of our culture. It can strip us of ourselves. We have to kind of put on a mask. I felt like I had to put on a mask when I was going to work, and not really be myself. And one of the powerful things that happens when I went onto one of these leadership courses for Black and Asian leaders was that it was almost like we was given permission, even the wording, right? So in the UK, there's this term called BAME, which is Black and Asian Minority Ethnic. So that is how everyone is categorized if you're not white. So we're always othered. We're always the minorities. White is the default. We are the other people that seemingly don't really we're not that important. And so I went on to this training course and was introduced to this term of global majority. And I was like, what is this? So anybody who is from the global South, anybody who is Black, Asian, who is non-white, let's say, we make up 85% of the world population. We are not a minority, we are a global majority. So that is now my language. I turn up as a member of the global majority. And that means that it means like I semi have an S on the back on my chest underneath my clothes, because I'm just like, well, actually, I'm not a minority. You can't minoritize me. I am a member of the global majority. We are 85%. England is this little island. I know that you guys were very powerful back in the day. You took away a lot of people's things. But the reality is that you're the minority. Not I'm going to call you that, but I'm a member of the global majority proudly. And it's just about now being able to turn up to meetings and have those conversations. I was in a meeting about an adoption work that's currently been going on about the horrific statistics for children, for Black children who are waiting to be adopted. It's awful. There's a lack of Black adopters coming forward. I wonder why. People do not trust the systems. So it was interesting to have that conversation and just say, look, as someone from the global majority who is beginning to think about whether adoption is an option for me, then you're not talking to me. And how do we fix that? So so those are the first two aspects that I think of excellence: knowing yourself and being authentic. And then the other two aspects I would say are leaning into where you are amazing. Do jobs, do jobs or tasks, whatever it is. If you have a career or you have it's not really an or. If you have a career or you have a job or you have a business, do stuff that is your superpower. If you're a person that is a people person and can talk to everybody and anybody and you're able to persuade and influence, do that. If you're a person who likes to go in, make decisions, solve problems, get it all down quick, do that. If you're a person who likes to take your time, you're very nurturing, you want to be the glue that makes sure that everything is done in the background, do that. If you're a person that likes the statistics, the details, the kind of thinking about different perspectives, do that. Make sure whatever you're doing is linked directly to what you are great at, because you can never fail. If you're doing a job that is linked to where you're great naturally, you can't fail it, because that's just you. On the flip side of that, everyone has blind spots. So mitigate against those. So where you're able to have other people that are opposite to you around you, either be in your team or in your support network, where there are people that are opposite to you, you need them because they're going to counteract some of your blind spots. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, myself and my partner, we're complete opposites. I'm very introverted, very to myself. I'm very much about getting jobs done. He is a person that is people. He's very extroverted. He's very optimistic. He talks to everybody. We're complete polar opposites. But actually, we work so well together because we counteract each other. We complement each other. Sometimes I do have to look at him a bit side-eye. And him the same to me, but it works. If I don't think I could date someone the same as me, because we'd be looking at each other very sarcastic every 2 minutes and it probably wouldn't last very long. So it's important to have people that are different to you, that have those strengths. And it's almost like doing things that are natural to you. It's like writing with your dominant hand. For me, it's my right hand. So you do things and you just write with your dominant hand. When you're having to do things that are not natural to you, it's like writing with your non-dominant hand. It's not like you can't do it, but you're just not going to do it as great. It probably take you as long. It's going to take you longer, should I say. And it's probably not going to be to the greatest.
And it's going to be harder for you too, because
absolutely. It's going to be harder. You'd be able to do it, kind of, but I'll say to my friend the other day, stay in your lane. If that is your lane, and then just make sure you've got people around you or things around you that can mitigate against some of the things that are that you're struggling with. And that's some of the stuff that I teach to social workers that I'm working with. This is where you're going to be great, amazing. but there's parts of the job that you are going to have some challenges with. So let's put in some strategies to help you with those bits, because you're going to struggle with them, full stop. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. But let me help you to think about those and what you need in order to still be able to do the job, and that you can then not have your manager on your back about why you've not done certain things. So yeah,
All
so
right.
that's me with excellence. You're knowing your power and you're living your excellence, and that's for me what excellence is.
That's perfect. That is something I would have probably liked to ask, but it's going to be out of the discussion of excellence. But of course, it's important to the community, so I will just throw it out there. And I hope I'm not going to have double, maybe some other questions to ask on it, because it can be what it is. It's about
Mm,
the adoption, because you were saying
mm.
something like a lot of black babies are out there open for adoption. There are no people coming out from the black community for the adoption, something like that, right?
Hmm.
But why are there so many black baby out there for adoption to start with?
So I would say it's not even so much babies. I think babies get adopted or can get adopted quite quickly. I think it's more the older children that um, are more challenging to place. And it's about, there's a number of different factors. So it's about their experiences, there may be sibling groups, um, and the number of adopters that are coming forward. And I think that's a major part of it. Um, the adoption process is very intrusive in any way, right? And it needs to be, because we're placing vulnerable children with new parents, and we're hoping or expecting that they're going to be forever parents, that we want to make sure that they are fully, I can't say fully equipped, but as equipped as possible to be able to provide permanent homes, forever homes for these children. But there's a challenge, because we have so many children who have probably already been through the care system, who are waiting for their forever family. But we have a lack of black adopters coming forward. And I think a lot of it is because people know that it's intrusive and they don't particularly want all their business out there. But also it may be things like they or themselves or their partners may not live in a house that may be considered good enough. So there's stipulations in the law at the moment in terms of, or in the guidance at the moment, that says things like you have to have a spare room available for a child that you want to adopt, and things like that. So practical stuff where people may think, well, I don't have a spare room, so it's not going to be an option for me. Or they may have, somebody may have been arrested back in the day, so they have a mark on their criminal record, so they're immediately ruled out. Or there's lots of different things that could come up and completely just rule out somebody for going through for an adoption. So I think that I mean, I've got a wide circle of friends who are in a similar position as myself, thinking about, well, if we can't naturally have children, then I will 100% be a mother, and I'm not under any illusion about that. But I'm coming to the point where I'm just like, okay, well, my children may not necessarily be biologically linked to me, so I will fulfill my aspirations of being a mum, but they may not be biologically linked, and that's okay. So I need to work out what my options are. But I'm only one avatar, right? So I'm a professional, I'm in the social workspace, so I kind of know what I would need to do. And I would probably consider it a good candidate, but there are so many other people who may not, at first hand, look like a good candidate to be a adopter. So if one of those people come forward and they say, oh, actually, I'm quite interested in being to be adopting a child, the response is so important. So if you go forward and you say, yeah, I want to do it, I want to be an adopter, if the agency doesn't respond in a way that's positive or encouraging, then I'm just going to be like, you know what, forget it. And that's a lot
Right.
of the problem. So it's the first contact, it's the assessment process, it's the criteria. It just blocks a lot of us. And I think the Eurocentric view of what a family looks like in the UK needs to be, I don't, it needs to be challenged, because Black families don't always look like that, or Asian families don't always look like that, or anybody from the global majority, their families don't always look like the 2.4 children with the picket fence. I took that from the States, not necessarily UK, but it doesn't always look like that. So we need to be a bit more open-minded that family structures are different. I was pretty much, when I was growing up, I was every weekend I was with my grandparents. Because and a lot of us were. My dad's one of nine, and I had a great time with my cousins at my grandma's house. There was 19 of us. It was great. My grandma's probably putting her hair out all the time, but it was great for me because I had friends to play with. Is that going to be seen as something off key because my dad was working all the time to be able to look after the two of us? Will he be penalized for that? Would he even be considered because he's a single dad wanting to be an adopter? So it's just about helping the policymakers, the helping the staff to think about things differently, so that more to encourage more Black people to come forward, because there are a huge amount of kids that just need some permanent homes, and we need to help them to do that because we don't want them part of the system because the system's not good for them.
The social system, the European understanding of the family. That is something that really maybe might need to be looked into. But anyway, I promise this is the last question I will ask you here on this before we return to the conversation on excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm imagining that I see pigeons, goats, dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They all have children, no? We
Mm-hmm.
are also part of this life, as it were, no?
Mm-hmm.
When we give birth to children, we should really be allowed to raise these children. Why is it that in the human society, looking because it typically in Nigeria, for example, I'm coming from Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
you give birth to a child. That child is you are going to stay with that child, no? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's part of your responsibility of a mother or a father for giving birth to a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take care of the child. It's not the government that is going to take care of the child or going to take the child from you and look for who is going to be the father or the mother of this child. I'm talking of typical African society.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is how nature really designed it to be, because there is a lot that go into the bringing up of a child.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that here we are looking for who to adopt the children? Are the parents dead? What happened to the parents?
So I mean, there would be a big backstory in terms of why the children may need permanent homes, and it's usually, well, not even usually, it's always because there's been a court case, and there has been evidence provided that for whatever reason the parents aren't able to look after the child, and nobody in the family circle has been able to look after them. So that could be for a wide range of reasons. Maybe they were being abused, they were being neglected, they were the parents themselves had issues, so maybe they're substance misusers, they've got mental ill health, they've got, there's just a wide range of things as to why they cannot live with them. And it's when a child is placed for adoption, it's the evidence that has to be provided, not just from the social workers, but from experts. But again, this is the Eurocentric view of who an expert is and what should happen. But there is a lot of input that goes into decisions when children are having to be adopted, and it's because something significant has happened, which means that they cannot be with their family for all sorts of reasons. So but yeah, I agree with you. Children should be best raised within their families 100%, but in a small percentage. It doesn't feel so small because it's my world, right? As a social worker, it feels like that's what everybody is. But in the reality is that a small percentage of children and families, in comparison to the wider population, need additional help. And an even smaller proportion of children need to be looked after outside of their families because, for whatever reason, within their families they're not safe and are not able to thrive. So yeah, so that's what that is.
Thank you for that, Nadine. Maybe we'll take on this argument on another occasion, not today, so we can continue with this one.
No problem.
All right, excellence. How do you even develop excellence? Say maybe, for example, a child is growing up and looking at your story, looking at you as a human being.
Mhm.
Uh, Maybe you were not born excellence. No, maybe you were not born with some of these characteristics that you would need to be able to build up your personality. So, how
Mm.
do you develop that?
I think just even just growing from a small child, there's something about positive affirmations. There's something about telling them that they can do it. Now, different people express their love differently, right? So some people are going to be very affectionate and say to them, oh, I love you, and give them hugs, and they're going to be very tactile, whereas other people are going to be more instructional and say, right, you need to do this next. And, oh, okay, so you went to school, you got a grade B. Why did you get a grade B? You need to get a grade A. Now that's not good enough. You need to get a grade A next time. And it's not because they don't love them. They're just helping them to strive for excellence, right? So it's different ways that people can parent their children or show their love. But I think there is definitely something about raising children so that they know that they can be what they want to be. They have a really firm foundation of being able to leverage off of that, so they can go to school, they can go to university if that's their chosen path. And I'm a big person about university. The kind of traditional path in terms of education is an option. So when I mentioned it earlier in terms of I did what is supposed to happen, so I went to school, I went to college, I went to uni, I went back to uni, I went back to uni. I'm very aware that that's kind of a traditional route of through education, and not everybody's looks like that, because some people are not academic or they just maybe don't want to. So I think there is something about supporting children to do what they believe is right. I know that there's lots of parents out there that are I'm going to choose my words carefully, maybe want to impose what they believe is right for the child. And it's coming from a place of love, so there's no judgment in that sense, but that may not necessarily marry up with what the child themselves wants. And there's then this kind of dichotomy between, well, you're a child, so how do you know, versus allowing a child to kind of find their way, and the parents guiding them. So I think it's important to give a really good foundation so that children feel loved, cared for, and they are then able to explore the world and be open to thinking about what different options are available to them in this world. Because the traditional routes is one which a lot of us marry up to and we kind of sign up to, but that's not the only one. And there's infinity as to the routes that somebody could grow up and live their life. So it's about helping them to be authentic to themselves so that they can do that.
All right, thank you so much for that. All right, now excellence and workplace. Say now these children, they have grown up now. They are in the workplace. Of course, you have been in a workplace for a lot of time. Your coaching is also around this place. So tell me, why do we even need excellence in workplace? What role does excellence play in workplace? In workplace?
Sure. So it means that the business is going to be excellent. When people feel valued, when people feel that they are working to their strengths, then the business is going to do well. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. I've certainly been in workplaces where I felt like, do they even know who I am? Am I just a bum on a seat where I can just be allocated these families to just stop the statistics looking so bad about unallocated families? Or does someone actually value the contribution I make to not only the families but to the department? So there is definitely something about understanding who is in your team. Even as a manager, if I was going back to being a manager now, I think I would do it a lot differently. I would really want to understand who my team are as individuals, where they are great, help them with their blind spots intentionally, and not kind of just be like, okay, well, you just need to get that done. Like, intentionally provide some support with their blind spots, and see who else in the team has got that excellence, and share their skills, share their ideas, and it just be a lot more what's the word, cohesive, a lot more, because teams, it feels like at times that they can just be. So I had a team of 7 social workers underneath me at one point, and it felt like they not even felt, they were just 7 individual silos going off and doing their work. We used to come together for a team meeting, but it just felt like, because of the time, it felt like it was almost like a checkbox thing, that we just kind of went through cases that we needed to, talked about kind of team dynamics a little bit. But that still people working in silos. And I think there is something about leaning into people who are different to you so that you can all feel valued, and can contribute to, the excellent services. So specifically in the social work world, I think there is something about being able to have a conversation with a social worker who is overly optimistic about what a family should or shouldn't be doing, just to kind of do some checks and balances with them about that. Or if someone is overly seemingly punitive, do some checks and balances about that. And then and just valuing the individuals that you have in your team, valuing what they contribute. That will then provide cohesion, that will then enable people to stay. Usually when people leave a job, it's not because of the company itself, it's usually because of the manager. They're just done. For whatever reason, there's some sort of conflict there. So if we can get those relationships, which is so powerful and so important, especially in social work, but actually in any workplace, if we can get those relationships where people understand each other, can value the contribution of everyone, then there is no doubt that the success of the team is going to is going to develop. And there's a quote that I absolutely love. It's by a gentleman called Peter Drucker, and it says something I'm not going to quote it because I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's something along the lines of, when your leadership is about working in your strengths, everybody working in their strengths, so the weaknesses become irrelevant. If you have different people that can cover all of the different aspects of strengths and also blind spots, then the weaknesses are going to be irrelevant. So I will have this strength, I will have a bit of a weakness here, but my weakness is somebody else's strength. So it's just going to, everything's going to be covered, and you can power forward as an awesome kind of team. So I think it's important that people understand one another, and it's all relationship based when it comes to that. So communication and behavior, understanding is so important.
That's important. Anyway, this one, my kind of curiosity now, it relates to partly what you already said before, but I want you to sort of reinforce the line for me again. Why are some people short of excellence in their work? Because, of course, this we find across the board in many industries, in many companies. There are some people that are actually short of excellence. Why is that the case? Is it that they don't know, or they don't, they cannot be excellence, or are there some things responsible for that?
I don't think they don't have excellence. I think they're just not using it. They're not in their lane. So, for example, if I am a person who is amazingly I'm a people person. I get my energy from being around other people, and I'm able to influence and motivate and talk to others. If I was working on a tube, so this is my context back in the UK, if I was working on it as a tube driver, driving the trains through the tunnels every single day, I'm going to absolutely hate that job, because it's not what I like. I like to be around people and talking. If I'm just in a tube, I'm just seeing a tunnel, and I'm opening doors, I'm closing doors, and I'm driving the train. I'm not doing anything. I'm not interacting with anybody. You're going to hate it. Absolutely hate it. So it's not that that person then doesn't have excellence. It's just that they're not in the right position. They're not in a job that's using where they're great. So I think it's about where people are finding that they absolutely hate their jobs. I think it's about them thinking, what do I like? What do I do? What do I do amazingly that I don't even have to think about? What do I do amazingly, like I'm using my right hand? Like, for me, it's my right hand, my dominant hand. Um, so what do I do amazingly that I'm using my dominant hand? And I don't even have to think about. And if you're not in a job that uses that skill, then you're going to be perceived as not excellent, or a failing member of staff, um, or they're just not very good, because they're probably doing something that's not naturally attuned to what they like as a human. So they just then need to go and find what that thing is and do that. So I think everybody has excellence in them, absolutely everyone. It's just tapping into the right post, job, career, whatever that will allow you to do that. So thankfully, I chose the right career. A massive part of my identity is that I like helping people naturally. Being a social worker, I help people. Um, I used to help children and families. I now help social workers. So it's who I am as an individual, and that's fine. I found a job. If I was doing something like, if I was driving a train, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'd be helping people get to work.
All right,
I
I
don't
get
know.
it. I get it. All right, now in the course of your work, in your professional work, have you come across somebody who was not maybe in this line of excellence that you have managed to correct, and this person get resolved from your correction? Any case study that you can share with me, maybe as a student of yours, or maybe as a co-worker, or somebody in
Mm,
the line of your profession?
sure. So I was coaching a new social worker. So in the UK, when you qualify as a social worker, you have your first year, which is called your forgot my second assessed and supported year in employment. So when you go into statutory social work, usually, but not always, but when you go into statutory social work, you are supported within a program. So you have a reduced caseload, you have to do some additional reports just to kind of evidence what you're doing in your role, do some reflections and things like that. So I had a social worker who was in this year, and she had a caseload that was she should never have had. It was just way too much for a new social worker to have. So she was completely stressed out, and feeling like she couldn't do it. But because of who she was as an individual, she's actually very similar to myself, like in terms of if failure is crippling. So she felt that because she wasn't able to manage everything, or she felt like she wasn't able to manage everything, that she was completely failing at everything. So what I was able to help her to do was we went through the assessment. I explained to her about her perfectionism and how she wants to make sure that everything is great, but then also acknowledged that the workload that she had was not okay, and anybody would struggle with that. Even a manager and a very experienced social worker would struggle with the caseload that she currently had. So what I was able to help her do is kind of just acknowledge some of her fears in terms of failure and letting people down. um, Also provided her with some advice around how to mitigate against some of those challenges that she was having, even just down to putting in some foundations in terms of what to do to sort out a schedule, because she was so overwhelmed she couldn't even think about what she needed to do first. So my coaching sessions for her were very much led by her, and I kind of had some backup things to do. And I just said at one point, I just said, look, let's just do your schedule for the next few weeks about what you're going to be doing when. Because she was working weekends, she was working evenings, she was working on annual leave, which is just unfortunately so typical for social workers. And I was just like, no, 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 you're in your first year. You just come into the profession. We're not setting you up as the foundation of what your career looks like going forward. So I was able to help her kind of just set down some foundations of set down a schedule, sorry, of what she could be doing, what she needed to block out, what her calendar looked like, just some practical tips about how she could do it all. And she was able to. And I got a really lovely email from her when she had finished kind of her first year, saying that she was reflecting over the year. She feels so much better as she's come out of the year. Two of her cases that were quite really challenging at the time had come to an end, so she had a lot more space anyway. But she certainly thanked me for the support I was able to give her, because it not only helped her to understand the way that she thinks, but also just that practical support of helping her work out what was a priority and what wasn't, was so key to helping her just feel like, okay, I just need to focus on this today. I don't need to worry about everything else. And even just giving her the permission to turn her phone off at 5 o'clock because she felt like she needed to keep her phone on. I said, there are services that happen that kick in at 5 o'clock that can take a call. You don't have to keep your phone on 24/7, your work phone, turn it off. And it's almost as if she needed permission to be able to do that. Even though she knew she could, I was saying to her, turn your phone off at 5. The emergency duty team will pick it up if anything happens. It is not your responsibility. So that would, I would say that she was the first person that came to mind when you mentioned that, because she was really struggling and was able to come out at the other end, really reflect on it, say that it wasn't okay, it was extraordinary what she was doing, but she did, like, I celebrated her. And I think that's also important. When things go well, you get through it, celebrate your wins. Like, that was, I said, listen, I don't even know if I would have been able to. I mean, I would have, but I wouldn't want to. I definitely wouldn't want to have had her caseload. But I said, look at that. That is going to set you up amazingly for the rest of your career. Because if you can handle that in your first year, you're going to be awesome. Not to say that you should allow your manager to then pile that on you forever, because that's not okay. That's not your new baseline. But it was phenomenal that she was able to come through it and do all of that work, because it wasn't okay, but she got through it and it was amazing. And I was able to help her through that as well.
Thank you for that. That is very important. And
Yes.
people also, of course, need to understand that you have gone through this process. That is why you are talking about it. You are talking about your experience, and you are also now helping people to be able to overcome some of these challenges. Okay, we have gotten to a point where we tell our guests to advertise themselves. So for people that want to get to know you, how can they connect with you? Are you having offer there? So use these small seconds for it.
Okay, no problem. So you can connect with me via LinkedIn. My name is Nadine Boyne on LinkedIn. I also have an Instagram which shares a bit more of my own story and the things that I do in my own life. So on Instagram, I am Nadine.klb. And if you are a social worker out there, wherever you are in the world, and firstly would like to contribute towards my book, get in contact. Either send me a message on LinkedIn or Instagram. I also have a Instagram specifically for the social work coaching that I'm doing. It's currently under development, and I will be starting to put some stuff up in April. So 1st of April, you will see some more posts going up to give you some information about helping you to understand yourselves, and how that would relate to you as a practitioner. It is tailored to social workers, but the information would be for anybody. So feel free to follow me, and that page is called Social Work Discovery, also on Instagram, and there will be a page that is about to pop up on LinkedIn. So that is how to contact me. My contact details are available on all of my pages. So send me a message if you're interested to contribute towards the book, to get some coaching, or just to keep in touch and see what I'm up to. And as I start to develop all of my programs and start advertising things, if it's something that you are interested in, you want to understand yourself more, where you're excellent, then get in contact.
All right. So all of you have heard it. So get in contact with Nadine. She's really brilliant, of course, as you can see. All right. Now to come to the last thing I'm going to ask you here just now, how to do with how do you, in a more practical sense, how do you develop excellence in workplace?
How do I develop excellence in a workplace? I start with individuals or the manager. Help the manager to understand who their staff are, understand where they're amazing, understand where they're not so much, help them in the areas where they're not so much, and then you move forward in your excellence. And you need to value your staff. I left a job previously because I just felt that I wasn't valued. I felt like it was the toxic environment. Whether or not it was, that's how I experienced it. But it's important, especially at this time when there is the great resignation happening, people are reevaluating what their lives look like, and people are making different choices. I moved to the Caribbean in the middle of the pandemic. So people are making real different choices that are related to what they want for themselves. So people are more likely to stay where they feel valued. And if you can show someone that they are valued, and that isn't just about being paid, because I don't know if everybody's underpaid, but social workers do not do it for the income. They definitely do it for the outcome in terms of the families that they serve. but there is such an importance of being valued, and a big part of that is understanding who they are and the communication between everybody within the team. And I think that is the foundation of developing excellence within your team.
That's perfect. That is super. All right. Now, I've asked you everything I want to ask you. I don't know, maybe that is something you want to add or to clarify, because we basically have touched a different thing. And to conclude the conversation, do you want to say anything or you want to add? It can be an advice or anything. Please go.
I don't think so. I think the only thing I would ask anybody to check out is, especially if you're living in the Western world somewhere and you're a bit tired of being othered. So you're a bit tired of being called ethnic minority, or you're or being called, when the UK I can think of, I don't know what it is in other parts of the world. But if you're a bit tired of being othered, check out a YouTube video. Just Google global majority, and it's by it's a video by one of my colleagues who I deliver some leadership training with. Her name is Rosemary Campbell Stevens, and she created the video, which is also, it's about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes max, and it just speaks about the global majority. And when you kind of just embody that whilst living in the Western world, in the UK, in the States, in Europe, for me, it just makes me turn up a bit differently when I just feel like, actually, I'm a member of the global majority. I'm not a minority ethnic group. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's my only last little plug that I want to put in there.
All right. Dear Nadine, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure on my part.
Oh, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.